Hi, everyone. Welcome to the July 29th, 2023 SNHU Optional Generative Writing Workshop. I am your host, Maxie Jane Frazier. I'm being a weirdo. We're moving into Module 5 in English 529 2 days from now, thank goodness, because I have an entire house to clean because my mother and sister are coming next week. And in Module 5, you are doing critical peer review of the first draft of your short stories. And you have a very short 2 to 3 paragraph, kind of like, what are my goals as a writer type thing. And that is another thing that requires outside resources. So keep in mind that, you may want to look up people having the same conversations and back up your ideas with that. And I want to expand on that a little bit because my Module 5 announcement that'll drop tomorrow morning. That would be my washing machine unbalanced behind me. Can you hear it? Okay, good. Because it sounds like there's somebody trying to bash into my house. So I just turned back the grades for the first critical peer review, and I'm sure, everybody earned good grades, but everybody wants perfect scores, and the scores mostly weren't perfect. And that's largely because quite a few people didn't find outside resources or didn't quote from their peers' work. And those are the two most important things I'd love to see you doing as you do critical peer reviews. I've been more than once sort of slammed in the end of the term feedback because I'm so insistent on finding outside resources. And the reason I have that drumbeat, and I at least want to explain my logic, is we should be constantly learning about our craft. I am reading the same kinds of outside resources that I'm asking students to quote as they're giving feedback almost daily in my own life, even though I've been doing this full time for at least 5 years. And it's because we should be constantly learning. We should be, when we start talking about setting, what you mean by setting may not be exactly what I mean by setting. Or if you're talking about a specific part of, say, character development, have that backed up with somebody else who agrees with you. I know quite a bit of what I'm talking about when I work on creative writing because I've done all this reading, but I'm that much more credible when I say I'm not the only person who thinks that dialogue tags can be awkward if you, add in like adverbs or, the funky dialogue tags. Look at what this person said, and she published it, So we're just asking you to, the royal we are just asking you to find people who are thinking similar things to you. And they won't say the exact words you're saying. You're finding your place in the conversation, but there is a conversation out there, and you should be a part of the bigger conversation when you are critiquing your peers. You should also be a part of that bigger conversation when you're thinking through your own work. And so please use outside resources and please do put, tiny quotes. Block quotes are almost not appropriate in all of English 529 because the assignments are so short that all I'm reading is somebody else's words if you are block quoting from an expert resource. So find the very nugget of what matters. And then when you're critiquing your peers' work and you need to get a quote of their work, find the nugget of what you're talking about. If they have a place where they are showing, what's the one we want? Telling instead of showing. Find just the 5 or 6 words of the telling and then discuss why it's telling, and find a resource that says why showing is better. I found a resource to tell you why showing is better for the announcement. So you can find one too. And you can use the one that's in my announcement. I make it easy for you. I just want you to get in the practice of having other voices join your voice when you're offering critiques. Be part of a bigger conversation. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Do y'all have any questions? Cool. This applies to any class you're taking, And I think if you get in the habit from my class, your instructors in other classes will be pleasantly surprised and compliment that you do this. I see a lot of our other classes as a team lead, and I'm always super proud when I see students who've been in my class doing these things, and the instructor's going, oh wow, unexpected, this is fantastic, you know. And it's because I don't know any other instructors who don't agree with me that these are things we need to be doing, but some of them maybe don't stress it as hard as I do. I'm just cruel. I'm just tough. Okay, so there's not a focus. You know how we are looking at narrative arc, point of view, or the narrative voice, character development, setting, both the physical setting and the sensory detail setting, and finally the use of rhetorical language, especially rhetorical devices, especially figurative language, which is my very favorite. You will always win me over with metaphors and similes and ways, and I talk about this all the time, that you translate this vivid experience in your head to your reader by finding that common ground. And that's what metaphors and similes do. So why am I saying that? I went into my speech and I can't remember. Oh, that means these are things we can think about when we're writing today. That's why. So should we write today?
Yes.
Yes, let's.
Awesome. So what I did this time, because I was trying to find new material, and now let's just hope I can find it. Oh yeah. So New Flash Fiction had their contest, and they came out with issue 30 of New Flash Fiction today. And this is the whole reason I was almost late. And so I didn't love the one that they chose to win, but I did love something else that they wrote this time. So in the chat, I am going to add a link, and you can all tell me if you can follow the link, because I want us to read.
Yeah.
You're there, Jesse. Okay, good. Great. I just think this one is so poignant, and sensory detail is probably the most important thing we can focus on, or figurative language. So let's think about those and whether or not they're present in this. I focus on this week, not always this week. Whether they're present in this flash, I'll read it out to you all and you can follow along, although the Pig Latin is going to be tough. And then we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I have a prompt for us. This is Magic Fingers by Elizabeth Fletcher. By the fourth motel, I knew to hold my breath for the exhale of mildew when Mom unlocked the door. In the shadows of the blackout curtains, we spied the coin box between the two doubles. Josie set to wheedling a quarter out of Mom. I surrendered my bulging backpack and sprawled on the orange bedspread, providing poor cover for an unforgiving mattress. With a clink, the bed stuttered to life, blurred the rust-edged watermarks on the ceiling, masked the highway wine. Josie flopped next to me while Mom carried in the brown paper sack of saltines and plastic-wrapped cheese, the powdered milk and toasted O's, what we'd eat out of plastic drinking cups left next to the ice bucket. Fluent in Pig Latin since the beginning of summer, I said, Iste, ace play, is they, etterbe, anthe, ethe, aslay. This place is better than the last. Mom shook her head, clicked her tongue. Our secret language drove her crazy, making us love it more. Josie reached over to tickle me. Agime, Arye, Ethe, Adjikme, Ingerspe, Iklingte, Urye, Unife, Onbe. Maggie are the magic fingers tickling your funny bone. I tickled back until our light bodies jogged toward the invisible sag in the middle, until our sides split, the magic fingers shattering our laughter, until our bones quaked apart, until my head began to throb, until I missed my own bed, and my tears shook loose as we vibrated at the same frequency of my sadness. I curled away from Josie and squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would end.
That's so sad.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
All right, I love it. What do you love about it? Or don't love, I mean. But when we feel sad, that's something to love about the writing.
Mm. Yeah, well, the setting that she evokes here is really, really solid. right? It's so easy to put yourself where these girls are in this like nasty motel room. It's really good.
Yeah, and how do you know it's nasty?
Let's go back to the text. What is it?
You can
The
quote this.
rust stained, what is it? The rust stained mattress and just the smell of mildew that you immediately get in the beginning. And then you can imagine with the blackout curtains that it's just going to be like this dank, moldy place that she just continues to create.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what amazing verb does she use in that first line about the mildew?
Stuttered.
Sorry?
Did you say in the first line?
Yeah.
The exhale of mildew.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like you open that door and it's like this disgusting room is exhaling on you. Right. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when I was on the rodeo team with the Air Force Academy, for some reason, our coach was like, these were the places we stayed. And so I have a lot of intimate experience with these motels and they're awful. I mean, they're so awful. And so she uses an extended metaphor in this. Do you guys want to take a stab at what that is? And remember, I only saw this for the first time like 45 minutes ago.
Part of it seems like the kids and the mom are in different worlds because they have different language and they like purposely antagonize the mom from it.
Yeah, fantastic. That is right on the way towards what I'm getting to.
And I think the bed also is like the symbol of the hopes and longings, because it's like she comes in, it's such a crappy bed, and then it becomes a fun bed, and then if she gets tickled, and then it goes back to being a crappy, sad place.
Yeah, and excellent. And the magic fingers are still shaking the bed, right? And what is that like? What is this vibrating bed similar to for Maggie?
Their life, that it's so up and down and up and vibrating, and they don't know if they're coming and going.
Yeah, exactly. And so they have fun when they first do this, but they're in their fourth motel now. And it's fascinating because we know that Maggie had her own bed. So what is the mother running from? I mean, this is fairly recent. What is all this? And it's all, that's what I think is the true, I didn't want to use the word magic because of magic fingers, but this is the magic of Flash, right? We have just enough of a glimpse into this scene to ask all these questions and imagine an entire life surrounding this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly, Sarah. It starts in the middle of an experience, but it tells an entire arc. And that's exactly successful Flash. And so I encourage you to go to the newflashfiction.com site and look over the issue 30, because there's a winning story, there's a 2 commended stories, and then they publish other stories that were submitted but didn't place. And this would have been the winning story for me. So I would love to, put it up in Slack or something if you read them and tell me what you think. Because I mean, the others are amazing. Don't get me wrong. This is just my preference. So this is the one I would have chosen. Okay, so for your prompt, very simply, and in fact, I didn't even write it down, but I'll type it in as I say it. What I want you all to do is to think about a transitional moment in your life. And it either could be something this sad going on in your life, or it could be a positive thing. I'm reading a really great book right now. Actually, I'll put it in the chat. And it's the girl is being confirmed and has a confirmation dress, but it's unusual because it's during World War II and the person doesn't want the kid to grow up. And it's kind of cool because she's Jewish and it's a Catholic confirmation. I'll put it in the chat. Anyway, so there are these transition moments in people's lives that are happy or sad or poignant or whatever. I hope you've come up with one, because I'm going to ask you to push us into a scene of that transition just like this. And I know you only have 6 minutes, but just let your brain do what it'll do. And as Sarah said, try to find an arc to tell about that moment. There's a bigger thing, whatever the transition is, it applies to like becoming an adult or, you know, running away from something or whatever. Try to imply that bigger theme in just a moment of your life. I don't expect you to produce magic fingers in 6 minutes, but you could get a start on something like that. And I will type in what I mean as you get going so you can refer back to it. But because I'm doing this off the top of my head, it's not written down yet. Okay, so I'm starting the clock. On your marks, get set, right. Minute left. Can't believe it. Time is already up. So how did it go? I muted everybody so there wouldn't be noise. So if you want to talk, then. Although I guess I didn't mute Randall, sorry, but he's very quiet. Did writing happen?
Yes.
I see people nodding. Was it good writing?
That's to be seen.
Yes.
I had a really hard time with it.
Good. Hard time is always, it's one of those friction things, like to get better, difficulty is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time in 532 as well. Like some of the stories are like flowing, and other ones I'm just like, yeah, I can't think of anything.
Are you liking 532?
I am. I have this one classmate though, that's just. So I'm in class with Suzanne.
I can have entire classes hijacked by one person, so it can happen.
Yeah. No, I'm with Suzanne. That's why I meant.
Okay, good.
It's interesting. It's a collection of really smart people and dingbats.
It happens.
It's life.
definitely.
Yeah.
So I know Sarah's interested in reading, so I'm going to ask her to go first and find out what she got.
It was really hard to fit in because I spanned it a whole lot of time, but standing on the corner of school property, a so-called friend gave me a cigarette. Still attempting to fit in, not knowing I never would. I hung out with all the other girls that hated themselves, knowing the school bell was going to ring. I turned and hustled back to the land of the fits and the misfits. Here, I think you might like this book. The English teacher handed me the lamest looking book ever, Anne of Green Gables. The character became my best friend while I sat alone and did not stand on the corner. She taught me to read, love writing, saved my life on more than one occasion. Then 30 years later, I find out the author of said book committed suicide. How could that be? How could she, who wrote the world I lived in imaginatively, preventing the action that she later took? Now I write perhaps the only reason I'm still alive, to tell my story, one that won't end the way hers did.
Oh, yeah. I love the arc in that story because I love those stories. Really nice. No, it's cool when we end up putting the same line in the chat. So we were putting lines in the chat that stood out, or that the thing we used to do in Peggy's meditation poetry thing, because that's a great way to capture them for later. And when we're forgetting them, we can just type them in really fast. Sarah, the line that got me the most was, I hung out with all the other girls who hated themselves. That was such a launch, because that framed the entire thing. And I feel like, I mean, I'd have to look at it in person, but I feel like you're 90% of the way towards having something to send out already. It has a very Seraph Breedley sound to it. You know how the woman we read, I actually was going to have us read Wondrous again today, but I picked something else. But the woman who did We Dive and Rise, and yeah, so I've just hijacked the conversation. Other people, what do you think?
I thought it was really good that you got the background of the author into your story and used that. Like everything was so intertwined with the bullying at school and the cigarettes and the hating yourself and the contrast between, you know, phenomenal author and such a sad life, and how you brought everything together in a circle was fantastic.
Thank you.
What else?
I also like the connection that you made with writing being the survival mechanism and the coping way, because I think a lot of writers, not just me, can really relate to that.
Yeah, the piece was very easy to like relate to, but also like how it resonated, especially like with some of the like the quotes like Dr. Max and I both like wrote that preventing the action she later took, like that was so good. But then it also like brings you out to like think about like yourself, what that moment is for you, and then like how and all this emotion. So you did a really, really good job of like doing the big overarching theme in like 6 minutes. Dang, Sarah.
I was like, I just got to get it all though, because if I just put part of it, it won't
And
work.
yeah, and you did capture the character's transition very well of, you know, like they were looking back at a time when obviously the character felt differently when those events were happening than they do now that they're telling the event. So like we can tell very early on in the story that a transition has already happened, but we're waiting to see what caused it.
Yeah, so the structure of it is really awesome. And then that could happen, you know, I mean, these are usually an indication that your brain's been on the subject and you just didn't know it until you put it on the page, because it had it pretty well formed for you. You know, it's really fantastic. I'm excited about this one. I can't wait to find out where you're going to be sending it out to.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead, Jesse.
no, I just, in such a short piece, I really love that there was even like a really strong theme going on of like that separation, but also of like this gray area that you come to learn as an adult, that not everything is so cut and dry, that you can create like these beautiful worlds and still have that suffering, you know? I really loved how well that played out in such a short piece. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, all of it. There's so many things happening in it that with a flash, we all get to take these leaps, right? You know, you don't have to put them all in there. You just have to imply them. And what I was going to say is, well, who wants to follow that?
I will.
Okay, go ahead, Jesse.
Do you want to rock, paper, scissors over it? Okay. All right. The airport broke my luggage. The jagged edge of a screw, ripped in half by some guttural beast in the baggage return, threatens to slice into the meat of my thigh as I struggle to roll it into my grandma's mothball home. I haven't been here in 5 years, since she gifted me this luxury hardshell luggage set. And she hasn't seen me since my hair was a mermaid tail shade of blue and purple. It fell to my waist in tangles, but now it's cropped clean to my shoulder and it sways like hay in a field. If I had come 2 weeks sooner, I'm sure she would not have recognized me or remembered me. In the 5 years that I was abroad, she forgot me, my aunt, my mom, like sand falling in an hourglass. And as we pack away what's left of her memory into boxes and trailers, I think maybe it's time to throw this luggage away.
Oh,
That was fantastic.
Oh my gosh, stop. Yeah.
luggage,
Now
literal and
I'm
figurative.
upset I didn't go first because yours is so hard to follow. Fabulous.
No.
So let's talk about what made it fabulous.
the massive amount of metaphors and similes and all that that you love, but it wasn't overdone. Like sometimes I feel like there's a stuff saying like, sometimes I feel there's so many metaphors that people throw in there just to say something that it's forced, but this really wasn't. And for me, the one line that for me was the best was the packing away the memories, with the whole like the luggage is falling apart and the suitcase is destroyed and everything is falling apart, but we're going to pack away this one thing and somehow keep it safe and protected. And that just amazing.
I think Sarah said it real well. And I definitely agree exactly with what she's saying. And it was funny because like I had my laptop up on a riser. So every time I went to type out the words, all y'all beat me to it because they were just such good, strong imagery. But it wasn't like the word choice that you chose made it so strong versus like you could have said other things. Like you could have said like your old dyed hair, but like that mermaid tail dye, like you can exactly like picture it, and just the word choice that you did. Wow.
And I want to encourage you, like, still type it in because it's nice. To
Yeah,
see
I was like, I might
people
get my
notice the
keyboard.
same thing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you don't have your keyboard. Yeah, fair enough.
There we
Randall,
go.
do you have anything to add?
The biggest thing to me was the luggage, and especially like the aspects of how the luggage kind of mirrored what was going on. You know, you talked about the jagged tear in it, and you can see that this relationship and the symbolic aspects of the luggage kind of mirror that. Like it's not this clean, I'm trying to find the word. It's not like this clean relationship that, you know, it's like everything else that we know. It's there's muddied aspects to it. There's things that aren't ideal. There's things that have caused you harm. And like you said, you finally hit that point of resolution where it's like, I got to put this down, because continuing with this is just causing problems. It's just going to continue to hurt me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Question to see if I understood it correctly. You said, your first person character said if she had arrived home 2 weeks earlier, her grandmother probably wouldn't have recognized her. And is that because her grandmother's actually passed away? And so, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's based on my grandma who passed away from dementia. So if I arrived before she died, there, you know, it still wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
the implication, because it took me a second to go, oh, hold on. You know, we could tell she had dementia because of the sand, you know, falling in an hourglass, which was a lovely image. But, you know, I was like, oh, because sometimes dementia people will recognize somebody for whatever reason, but it's like, that's not it. The one thing that I would say to go along with what Elisa said is that when, you know, I keep telling everybody to use metaphor and simile, but I should also emphasize almost always that should be able to do some kind of double duty for you. So, and yours do. And that's the reason that I'm bringing it up. So you don't just use a metaphor or simile to get it in there. You use it because it will extend and expand the sort of theme that you're working on. So, you know, the mermaid tail shade of blue and purple has to do with sort of this fantastical youth that, you know, is off exploring and you know, doing all the great things. The sand falling in an hourglass is the dementia grandmother also running out of time. I mean, it's not just that it's sifting that way as lost memory will do, but it has another meaning as well. And so that's the best metaphor and simile, is when it can function beyond, you know, the example I always give is that soft as a childhood teddy bear. Not that I have a childhood teddy bear, but we all know what one is, and we all know what kind of nostalgia goes along with that image, whether we've had one or not. And that's the double duty of a good metaphor or simile. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, Elisa.
Okay. And just because my brain is like all over the map today, two
Yeah.
things. One, if it helps you, Dr. Professor, my father's entire side of the family, the boys all wore baptism gowns to their dresses. And Jesse, my daughter's boyfriend, flew for the first time in 16 years. Now he's 25, she's 20, almost 24, a couple weeks. For the first time in 16 years on job interviews and house searches. And the Delta, the conveyor belt at his suitcase.
They're monsters.
It was, my heart's broke because 16 years and she finally, this poor guy gets on a plane and it totally shredded everything.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is my story. Totally not what we were asked to do because my brain is, like I just said, not really firing today, but here it goes. I'm off, Cleo shouted to the house. As usual, no one responded. She let herself out, carefully locking the door behind her. A tear leaked as she slowly walked down the driveway and off to her day. Behind her, a curtain moved in the wind of an open window. A silhouette of a man nudged the curtain aside and morphed into her father, who glanced at her retreating back at the window. He picked up his suitcase and wandered down the stairs. Me too, he shouted to the house, unlocking, exiting, and relocking the front door behind him. Cleo's mom sat in the darkened living room, staring at their faded backs.
Interesting. So like a omniscient POV.
Right, like, are they leaving? Are they not leaving? Who's leaving? Why are they leaving? I
Yeah.
don't know.
So some thoughts. Mine are in the chat, in that I was like, oh, shift to POV, and trying to work it through with my head. And then I'm like, maybe an omniscient POV, which you could easily do a little bit of editing to get there.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I also read it as each shift to POV was a character leaving the house for good, like either they were moving away or they were passing away, and the POV was shifting to the next person in line.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
trying to decide if they were all like they were done and leaving the mother behind. Like, you know, she's walking out of her life, he's walking out of life, and the mother is just the only one left sitting holding the bag.
And the impression I had was the mother was almost like willing herself not to see it happen because it was too painful.
Like she can't decide if she's the victim or if she's to blame or if she caused it. Not my best writing, but it's all I could come up with.
As usual, no one responded. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think you were well on your way towards achieving the effect you're talking about, for sure.
Yeah.
Go, Randall.
I was going to say, I think that functions very well as a first draft. And I think that you have an opportunity there. You've got a very cool concept that you can explore more with. And I think if you expand on that and spend some more time with it, it could really become a good short story.
Okay, I will, maybe. Oh.
Well, I think there's still a lot of really strong emotion that's going through that. Like I could very distinctly feel the like difference in emotion as each character leaves. So that it really is a whole cast, right, of distinct people leaving this house.
Yep.
And I think that omniscient voice could show up pretty easily and help us be able to be inside all the heads, just by maybe setting an eagle's eye view of the house itself and maybe pointing to each of these characters and what they're doing in the moment, and then head into the story.
Okay.
So that, because basically you just have to establish that it's omniscient, and then you can get inside anybody's head. But it's the establishing omniscient that seems to get skipped a little bit for people.
Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine like this like really beautiful description of the house so that it feels, you know, very homey. And then seeing everyone leave that would, you know, be very, I don't know, heart-wrenching to a degree.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Right. And it would be like on the day that everything changed in the, I'm going to use your name, Stein household.
Yeah.
Cleo was headed for the door. the father was packing his suitcase and the mother was sitting, the mother/daughter was sitting in the living room. And that lets us know, that establishes a scene that we know something else everybody can see.
Yeah.
And then it would be Cleo called out, and so we're with the omniscient narrator able to witness it happening and knowing what they're thinking. But if you
Okay.
only write it close into Cleo and then close into the father and close into the mother, that's shifting into these different viewpoints. And in a piece this short, that's super tough to track for people. But you
Okay.
almost, I mean, if you can just get us into an omniscient viewpoint, you then can do it almost as short as you have it.
Okay.
And the omniscient narrator can let us know, can hint at this finality of everybody leaving.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's off to a great start.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Randall and Suzanne left. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
The phone comes to life with different area codes, unrecognizable. My legs are numb from sitting. My upper back tense as I hunch over the pages and the multicolored sticky notes. If I sat up, my back would crack like a glow stick, and it's begging me to. Applications flashed on the computer, tabs warning about logging out due to inactivity. If only it were that simple. My energy elixir bubbles in the can, reminding me to finish it, to be able to open my eyes and see all the options to propel me, I'm sorry. Only one bedroom, wrong loan type, foundation crumbling, a perfect fixer-upper, wrong class. I take a breath, pressing power on my laptop screen, showing the reflection of my face. It doesn't know what to do either.
Can you read the part with the crumbling again? There was a brief freeze in your voice and I didn't quite catch it.
Foundation crumbling.
No, can you give me more
Oh.
context?
Oh,
I got
yeah.
crumbling.
Only one bedroom, wrong loan type, foundation crumbling, a perfect fixer-upper, wrong class.
Wrong loan type? Oh, like a balloon mortgage or something?
I am learning so much about buying a house.
Oh, that's terrible. And then wrong class, which is, awesome. Yeah.
I love you powering down the laptop and that it's showing the reflection, because it's also in my mind that you're powering down yourself because you're exhausted, your back's aching. We've all been there. We've all struggled, whether it's the car loan, the home loan, the school debt, the yada, yada, yada. We're all of that age that we've dealt with it. And like, I felt like just by powering down the laptop, it's a reflection that you're like, all right, I'm done. Like, it's not just the laptop that's powering down. That was my favorite part. I actually admit I didn't quite get what you mean by wrong class.
I was going and then I was like, inner editor, just move on, because I was going to go
Oh.
off in a different thing. And I was like, nah,
Okay.
so
I think
yeah,
what
that
Sarah's
was a thought.
typing-
Yeah.
What Sarah's typing is what you were intending to go into, right? The upper, middle, lower class.
Yeah. But
I was definitely going to go on like just like all the different types of applications that are going on in my life right now. And then I was like, I'm switching gears, but I do like honestly, like the wrong class also works because houses are expensive.
Oh my God, right.
don't
Yeah,
get a
I was
fixer-upper.
thinking you meant like an educational class at first because of our context here. And then I liked it very much with what Sarah's saying, because even getting a loan, I mean, the only reason I've ever been able to buy a house is I can do a VA loan, right?
Mhm.
What else? Any other
Whether
thoughts?
you're the wrong class, whether you're looking in the wrong area, like class-wise, like whether you're looking in, Richville versus Regularville. But I felt it could also be like the wrong class for the mortgage, like whether you want a 5-year or 10-year or 30-year, like what, like there's so, it just, that was the one phrase that I felt like bothered me, but otherwise it was great.
I don't know how, like, you've written it syntax wise, but the way it was read and the way everything just kept coming and coming and coming was so overwhelming and in such a fantastic way. Like I can imagine that if you did write it on, you know, if I saw it written on paper and I saw all these commas and maybe semicolons and no period because it's just never ending. That is just such a great way of putting your reader in that same mentality and creating that sense of just being overwhelmed.
I love that idea. It's like very, what's his name? Cummings, was it, that wrote without really, that wrote, and Poe that wrote really, really long sentences that didn't end.
You know,
I
there's
love
a-
that idea.
There's a flash form that's really fun where you start every sentence with the word because. And this one could really, I was reading one actually that I almost brought in today, but it didn't have enough sensory detail for me. So it would be fun to go because the loan was the wrong type and because it might be fun just to play with it and see if it did something fun. If you all go to, and I'll write Sarah Freely's name right here. If you go to Sarah with an H, Freely's webpage, she has a brags page, and one of those people on there, I don't know which one, you can have fun reading. One of them wrote a because poem that or not poem, flash that I read today, and it would, and it's not Elliot. I don't know. There's like 10 people on there, but they've only written one or two things, and they're all short. So, and you would know because the word because would be at the beginning of each sentence. So, anybody else? Randall, do you have anything to add?
Most of what I had noted has already been said, but to me, I got a feeling of transition and like indecisiveness throughout, like, and not necessarily willing indecisiveness, just
Yes.
completely overloaded and unable to act because you can't decide which path needs to be addressed first. So,
Yeah.
and like Jesse said, you also had that the way you read it kind of amplified that sense of I don't know what to do next.
And awesome that the computer didn't know either.
Yeah.
It was a nice a little bit of I mean, again, I like a metaphor. Yeah. Okay, Randall, do you want to read what you got?
Sure.
Thanks, Suzanne.
My bedroom was silent except for the bomb that spilled its shrapnel in my mind. I replayed the conversation with the recruiter again and again, held hostage in a shitty movie theater, the terrible movie on repeat. I hear the endless list of qualifying medical questions over and over. Do you have asthma? As a child, sir, but not now. Rejected. I listen, numb, as his cascade of memorized and emotionless words tear my future out of my chest and shred it, walking away and leaving a bewildered 18-year-old to pick up the pieces. Mom is elated, of course. I won't be a Marine after all. She's either ignorant or ignoring the depression that creeps back as purpose is pilfered from my mind once more. Everything changes. My friends go to boot camp, and I go to college. I smile, I achieve my grades, but my mind wanders the path I might have unlocked with a simple little lie.
Wow. I'm still typing. Wow. Whew. Thoughts. While you're
I love
thinking,
I love the tearing your future away. I could just see, like, in my brain, like, you know, one of those clip pads with the papers and he's just ripping off a sheet. And it's like, yeah, you're done, goodbye. And wow, that was for me the stronger sentence there. I loved it.
loved it.
And they would have found out, if it's any consolation. My father was the medic for the checking for one of them in the Israeli army. They find out when you've lied about your medical history.
They wouldn't have found out.
Not
And
here?
the reason I say there was a woman that I served with at the Air Force Academy who had run the Leadville 100 and made it. So you have 24 hours to finish this race through the mountains that changes altitude. I mean, thousands and thousands of feet. And she not long after she finished it, they're like, hey, we show you as having asthma in your background. That's a death disqualifying medical
Yeah.
condition. This woman who can run 100 miles through mountains in 24 hours. And they're like, oh, but you could possibly be in the Air Force, right? So if they find it, I mean, so Randall, the good news is they would have kicked you out, but except for that she didn't have it and whatever. And they'd written the reason I know this email is we would take examples of really bad writing and then we would use it in our executive writing program to say, how could this letter have been better? But it's all to say you could have lied. And if you get far enough in, they won't kick you out anyway.
Oh, wow.
I have exercise-induced asthma and they didn't kick me out.
My dad's dog has exercise-induced paralysis.
Oh, no.
It's awful.
All right, other thoughts about Randall's piece?
I like how you started it off with this exploding bomb in your mind that was keeping you awake. And then, like, you know, starting with that imagery of just being just eviscerated, you just continue to show all of the different ways that this person is torn apart by such a, you know, a short happening, you know, by such a small thing. And it carries down into everything, how you can't pick up the pieces. And then even in like less, I guess, explicit ways of showing how you've been torn apart when you say whether your mom is just ignorant or ignoring your depression, because we all know how much even depression alone can really disrupt you, you know. So it was just this really great scattering of this person's psyche across the story.
And most people are typing additional stuff. And so what I would add is what an incredible use of an extended metaphor that the very explosion and wounding happened by avoiding exploding and wounding because you couldn't go into the military, you couldn't be a Marine. And that is not, it's clever in the good way, not clever in the bad way. So it's just, it's really effective. And, you know, I know a lot of veteran publication places, Randall. So if you want to consider trying to send it out to some places, I would be happy to help you. Just reach out to me. Okay. Is that everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Randall, did you see everything in the chat? Are you in a position to see the chat?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that, because it's pretty great. But I get the chat when I record, so I can always send it to you if you hadn't. All right. So this time I gotta admit, I was like, hold on, why am I never having you read anything from Microlit Almanac? Which is the flash fiction journal that Birch Bark Editing has we put together. And I'm proud to say that 2 of the inaugural Kaleidoscope participants in that first Kaleidoscope actually wrote pieces that are appearing in Microlit. Suzanne will be publishing in 2 weeks, a little bit more, on August 16th, and Sarah's 2 weeks after her on August 31st.
Double yay.
And obviously I have those dates slightly wrong because that's not 14 days, that's 15. So I think it looks weird on my computer because we publish it at midnight Eastern time because apparently the world functions in Eastern time, which is crap. But that's 9 p.m. my time. So when it's on my thing, I think that Suzanne's is actually coming out on the 17th and Sarah's is the 17th. It's just, if you really want to see it, you can get it at 9 p.m. on, on the 16th, you know, which they did. I swear to you, the East Coast people think that no other time zone exists. So there you go. I mean, at least 3 of us in this room right now are on the Pacific time zone. It exists. And Sarah, I think, is Central, aren't you? Yeah. Jesse, you're Eastern though, right? Aren't you?
I'm Central.
You're
Yeah,
Central.
I'm on that side of Kentucky.
Awesome. Randall,
Yeah.
what are you?
Central.
Oh my God. See, the
Just
East Coast
barely.
isn't even here. I love it.
Yeah, I'm about an hour from the time zone shift.
Yeah. So here's a link to a really beautiful, very micro piece. John Coates, I know Sarah's been to Mix and Meet. Suzanne, you have too? Have you? No. John Coates sometimes comes to Mix and Meet. He has some huge health challenges, so he's not always there. But when he comes, he will write the shortest stuff. Sometimes it'll be just 2 sentences, and it's the most brilliant thing you've ever heard. So we wheedled him into publishing this. And it's called Revelation. And what I want to do, I'm going to turn my sound's way up and tell me if you can hear him reading it. I'm going to play the recording for us to listen to him. So here we go.
Revelation. In the afternoon, she threw herself across my lap and said, I'm yours if you want. In the evening, read it. I watched her sleep through the station again.
Hold on. There we go. Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps. I just think it's beautiful. And I have a feeling, because he writes pretty autobiographically, that this could be related to his now long-term wife, Pam, and they are the loveliest couple and so in love. What do you think? And as you tell me what you think, tell me what you think about hearing him read his own work. And I see that Elisa said that she couldn't hear it at the end. He read pretty softly, but you were able to read the piece, right?
Yes.
Had it on my, clicked on it.
I think hearing it and, you know, in his own voice, he obviously knows how to inflect how he really wants you to hear it. And so I think that made it really effective with his final, how about that? You know, you could really feel how it hit him, you know, it was,
Yeah. Because I would have pronounced it, how about that? You know, and the
Mhm.
about would have been where my emphasis was. So it's really important to know what he thought of it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing this new thing, and not all the authors read. Sometimes they have somebody read for them, but that we're doing this new thing where we're having everybody's piece read so that it's more accessible to people who can't see,
Mhm.
and they get a chance to hear either the author or somebody else reading it. And I love it. I wish we'd done this all along, because I think it's really meaningful and it's easy. It's easy for people to record and do this kind of thing. So what we move a lot in setting in this, and how do you get that sense of it?
The text that tells us that the time's shifting is a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So she plays music and dances on a table.
Mhm.
And then 8 months later, he's rising from a bed. And so the table feels much more public because she's saying, I'm yours if you want me, as she directed her team, right? So there's it's public, there's people, and then it moves to the intimacy of a bed, and he watches her sleep. And then I don't think this is actually his sketch. This is just a non-copy. Maybe it is his sketch. I wish that he told me.
I thought he was saying also that she was, because that's where my mind is going, pregnant, you know, 8 months pregnant. That was my thing, and that was the happy
Oh yeah, no.
time
If
frame.
it's autobiographical, that's not the case, but it could be.
Okay.
So kind of cool, right? I mean, that's a great idea and a wonderful thing to have happen in flash fiction, you know, because he doesn't probably intend that. but it, you know, it can happen. Flash fiction is that interaction between. Okay, so my prompt for this one is basically, because he says, I want my writing to be participative, self-revealing, sacrificial, and offering a calling out to the reader to do the same. And so he's writing about a moment where he had a foreign emotion. And this is a tough one for you to come up with quickly, but I'm asking you to write about a moment when you had a foreign emotion. And that's going to be the entire prompt. I will briefly tell you my own little story of, we were required to jump off a 10-meter board and do a water survival training thing at the Air Force Academy. And I knew how terrifying this would be because I'm really bad with heights. And so I got up there and I walked out, you know, to walk off the ledge. And I was just like, this is going to be so bad. This is going to be so bad. And something in me shut down in a way that I have never experienced. It was a firm no. It is you've done a lot of stupid things in your life, but you are not doing this. And I didn't even know who this voice was. And he talks about this voice, right? And so if I were writing on this prompt with you today, I'd be writing about not jumping off the 10-meter board at the Air Force Academy and never having jumped off the 10-meter board. Never will I jump off a 10-meter board. And that was just such a foreign emotion to me. Because then I broke down crying, which crying in public at the Air Force Academy is a really embarrassing thing. So, and there was no doubt that voice had the say over what was going to happen in my life at that moment. So maybe that's what I should be saying. And did you hear an inner voice? Because sometimes that's, you know, what provokes us, right? To recognize that this foreign moment is happening. Okay, everybody. I don't know if it's a good prompt or not. We're about to find out. On your marks, get set, right. We have about a minute left. All right, your time is up. Please gather back here. How did it go?
Okay. Yeah.
I have an okay. I have a expression off Suzanne's face that was identical to that okay. Yeah, it felt a little bit hard because of that foreign emotion thing. But we could have just maybe done inner voice and that might have been easier. I don't know.
It was fun to try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's interested in going first?
I will.
Okay, Jesse.
All right. I just want to see that beautiful body. I stared at the text for a few minutes before calmly setting down my phone to take a shower, because I always thought better in there. I curled into the tightest ball I could manage as the water pelted me, and I thought I wanted to be showered in his love. I wanted attention, hugs, and sweet kisses after a hard day of work, but distance did not make my heart grow fonder. It had hardened into a cold shell that once daily messages could not penetrate. So after my shower, I finally replied no. And when his response came, I ignored it. And we went on in layers of distance and cooling emotions so that when he finally called from across the ocean to end it, I didn't feel the need to jump in the shower. Done.
I'm typing.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
I love the shower repeats. Whether it was the shower, the physical shower, the shower of emotion, the shower of his love, the shower of not needing his love, the physical cleansing after a long day, the cleansing of his, like the shower, so many places, so many ways, was fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
What else? Or are we mostly talking by text these days?
Yeah. I'm dying at the all caps from Suzanne.
I really enjoyed, you opened it up with vulnerability. I want to see your beautiful body. And you're like, I'm not going to show it to you. So your character jumps into the shower where she immediately curls up into a ball. So it's not really about the shower, right? And then after that, it hardens into a cold shell. So we still kind of have her in a lump. And maybe she was this hot thing that got cooled down by the water. I don't know. Then there was a feeling of a volcano when we had the layers of distance and cooling. And I don't know, but there's a lot going on that was wonderful. And I would need time to figure the rest of it out, because I think that there was definitely some kind of volcano thing going on.
Mm.
Or like eons of earth that create layers of meaning. I don't know. So I would keep working on it as a reader. And I think that you could tease those out even more as a writer, possibly. Randall, I jumped in. Do you have anything to add?
At first, I was kind of thinking the shower was actually the safety or the soothing spot, but the more I thought about it, where the shower was pelting the narrator, it kind of came across that it was more an issue of just discomfort in general, and that was kind of an attempt at an escape, but it wasn't enough yet. And basically until the distancing and the cooling off happened, nothing could really make it right. So maybe I'm missing what you were trying to say there, but that's how it seemed to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, great observation.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. I wanted to talk about feeling the ick. You know, I don't know if that came across though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. That was the beginning of the ick.
Yeah.
But the thing that maybe we didn't know until the middle of it, which is possibly okay, is that
Mhm.
this is ick from somebody who thought he had a right to ask for it,
Yeah.
and that something had changed in her. And I feel like there would have been a tiny beat, yeah, especially the calmly setting the phone down to shower. There'd be a tiny beat about he must have, the impression is he must have been sort of a controlling, yucky ick person, but the character wanted the attention. And as soon as he was gone, she was like, oh, you know what? This is all a really bad idea. And she allows the breakup to emerge instead of just breaking up herself, which is continuing the passive behavior that kept her in a relationship like that. All threads that I think could be strengthened even more. I mean, clearly they're there because we're all reading them and understanding them. But I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it could be even more. Okay, so awesome. Could we have Sarah go next, please? Okay.
I actually have a title. Why did I?
Why did I?
Try holding your breath till you die. You can't. The forced instinct for survival takes over. Lying in the hospital bed, my eyes are shut, breathing finally not labored at all. Breaths got more and more shallow till it stopped. Sounds and alarms are heard, but as though far away, muted. Awake, but not totally peaceful. I didn't have the instinctual urge to take the next breath. I began somehow reasoning with myself. Should I? What if I don't? All questions not rapid, just floating without will. Why don't I have to take the next breath? Maybe I won't. Maybe there, why isn't anyone coming in my room? Don't they hear the alarms? Still no urge. How long has it been? I ask, still not having taken another breath. It wasn't an out-of-body experience, nor a near-death experience, at least not how I imagined. There's few that would miss me. I slowly took the next breath. Months later, I wonder, normally, I want to die. This peaceful place is completely new.
Wow, interesting.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot to unpack there. Because it did not result in death. It opens up all those questions, I think. You know, did your character, were you having a near-death experience and it's different than what you imagined or not? And what happened to your instincts? And my question is sincere in the chat about was the slowly took the next breath instinctual, or did you have to make a mental check? Well, I know the answer to it. I'm just saying for your writing, did you have to make a mental choice to take that breath? And man, I mean, like there is a huge metaphor going on when somebody chooses to breathe when their body has given up on the what is it, the autonomic nervous system that should make you breathe, is that right? So
Yeah.
I feel like you got to get the word autonomic in there somewhere because that's and it maybe even pairs with the Anna Green Gables thing, because it the character, you're probably autobiographical character, makes the choice to take the breath when, as somebody who smoked in the corner of the schoolyard, she wouldn't have made that choice, right? And there's so much to work on with that. I mean, it's pretty close as it is. I'm just saying that that's just fertile ground for writing as well.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
I got stuck on two things that you said. One was the alarms being muted, and one is what you said normally, that you were, breathing normally, or normally you would breathe, or I can't remember the word, but the muted alarms to me were both the alarms in the bedroom, the alarms in your head, the alarms that people were saying, your thoughts. And the normally to me was also strong because it was like, what is normal? Yes, normal to breathe, not normal to breathe, but this whole thing you were going through, it's like I felt like we're trying to decide whether you wanted to go back to the normal way of your life, which is what put you in this position, or whether you wanted to breathe again and take your whole life in a different direction so you wouldn't end up in your old normal. And I'm sure it's totally like adding things that weren't there, but that's how I saw it. It's like a choice between the old normal and the new normal.
Yeah, the feeling of a hospital was pretty clear to me. And so that shifted a bunch of, what you're saying, Elisa, the fact that she was in a hospital.
Mhm.
You said in her bedroom. And so,
I meant hospital.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
A lot to think about, definitely. What else?
That was the day that happened, the day that I did the Zoom from the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh God.
If you remember back then.
That's
Mhm.
wow.
Imagine, right? If you had not chosen to take that next breath. Oh,
Wow.
I'm team take that next breath.
Yeah.
I just like got the sense of the narrator being so bold, like such a strong like characterization, just in the part where you said like, will I take the next breath? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Like there was such I guess like a strong personality that came through in that made me really, really be invested in would they do it, because it's a choice, and I want to know what they're going to choose. Like nature has nothing to say against them,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that came through from Jesse, who knows you the least out of all of us, because it shows what's showing in your writing is accurate. And I want, and I don't know if you've ever done this, Sarah, but when you jump in a swimming pool, like I got dumped in the swimming pool by some of my brother's friends, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to get up to take the next breath, and I was going to have to take a breath of water. And I think that's the feeling that we would expect, like that panicked emotion when a breath isn't coming in, or your body isn't saying, I need to breathe. And yours is so peaceful. And I wonder if it would be helpful, and everybody jump in, we're all writers here. Would it be helpful to talk about having experienced the panic of not breathing before and wondering where that panic is in this moment? Because you've got the peace nailed,
Mhm.
And I mean, one of the most terrifying things personally, like I don't want to drown, right? Because the idea of stopping breathing is so terrifying to me. And I think it is to most people, because that means we're going to die. And in this moment, your body was saying it was okay to die. So there's which is horrible. So there's some kind of peace that you're offering to people. Not that it was even a near-death experience so much as if it was the moment, maybe we don't feel the panic that we think we would. I don't know. I mean, there might be something positive to offer or to think about or to contemplate. Especially, I mean, I think you all know that my sister is terminally ill, and if she read something that said in those moments when we think we'd be thrashing and panicking and so upset because we're about to, what's the word? Shuffle off our mortal coil. Is that Shakespeare? Yeah. Maybe there's a comfort there for people who are facing circumstances like what you're facing, Sarah.
I think we all hope that is the case.
Right. And I'm saying that if this is nonfiction, you actually had a moment that maybe supported it. Like a glimpse into a future that none of us want to picture, but you got handed that moment. Because, I mean, it hasn't happened again. And I know that you've struggled with breathing and it's felt horrible. So it's just interesting to think about. you know, I don't know where farther to take, like, I don't want to push it too far, but it is really an important thought that you had a moment that's different than all these other moments. Randall, do you have anything to add on top of all the talking I've been doing?
No, I think you've covered it well. The only thing I would say is I can sympathize with that. Again, the asthma I brought up in the last piece, you know, I know that feeling of wondering if you're going to draw the next breath. And I also know the feeling, not of the breath particularly, but I know the feeling of not knowing if you want to keep working it, trying to make it the next day. So I think you captured not only that, but you also, to me, the most powerful piece in this was at the end when you talked about the difference in mindset when you do want to take that next breath, and how when you've come from that place that you were before, you feel that it almost feels alien. It feels like you're looking into the thoughts of someone else. And you did such a good job in such a short piece of capturing the difference that one mind can experience depending where they are in that moment.
I clearly did not capture it all. That was eloquent, Randall. Thank you. Really thoughtful. Awesome. So does that mean you want to go next, Randall?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
My wife fought for 10 long hours, and a piteous wail of helplessness and need served as her victory cry. Sharp scissors were pushed into my hand, and I severed the bridge of a former life, the nurse bundling my son and carrying him to the exam table. He was so small, his questing lips quivering as he shouted his defiance to the world. I placed my finger gently in the soft pink palm before me, and the chubby digits closed like a Venus flytrap. I melted into the touch, promising him that I would never try to escape.
Wow.
Mm.
I love the bridge and the scissors and the former life. Wow.
Yeah, I almost got, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but when you said severed the bridge of a former life, I almost thought this child was stillborn. And I was very happy. Well, he cried, right? And he grabbed your finger. So I was very happy to see it was not a stillborn child. But yeah, that was a really great imagery. And then I really liked the way he grabbed you like a Venus flytrap, because, you know, Venus flytraps, they eat things when they grab onto them, you know, and they take that life for themselves. So it's, you know, a way that you're giving yourself to your child, right? I liked that.
But I muted you when you were writing.
I really liked that. I thought it was going to go one way and then it went completely else. And I think how you set it up, because I was like, oh, is she like cutting, like doing some crafts? What is she doing? And then the victory cry into just the new life, and then that you're cutting it was really sweet. I really liked how it just kept building upon itself to get to this great ending.
I think we have far too few father perspectives of people being, you know, having a new child. And this, I think, beautifully captured how a father does not birth a child, but has this emotional moment anyway. And that this father, the father in your story, Randall, appreciates everything that his wife has gone through, knows that he can't match it. And the only thing he really can do is promise a child he would never try to escape. And then that has this whole implication of, even though the child's going to suck the life out of him like a Venus flytrap, he'll stay. And has there been somebody in this narrator's life that hasn't stayed? You know, is that what provokes this promise at, you know, the birthing table like that? It's so violent in a really wonderful way. women don't tend to write about childbirth with violent terms, but the sharp scissors that severed the bridge of a former life. And only that severing can bring the child into the rest of the life and in with the father and all of that. It's just wonderful. And her victory cry isn't out of her body, but out of the child's body. All of it is, I mean, I think it's such a unique way to look at it. And again, I always tell you when you write here that you should be thinking about sending these out. You do have complete narrative arcs and flash pieces that are worth considering. So anybody have anything to add? Sarah had to run. She said sorry. So we have Elisa and Suzanne left. Who would like to go next?
I can go.
Okay.
I'm trapped. It's not the normal trapped under a pile of blankets piled on, or the cat card where the cat sits on you so you can't go pop the popcorn, or even that class you can't get out of, or that you can't drop out of because it'll show on your transcripts as incomplete. This is trapped where you heard the tearful "wake up, open your eyes," and the "if you don't wake up, we have to intubate you." And you're screaming, but it's silent and no one knows you're trapped there. It's the ambulance with your partner squeezing your hand, probably going to break it, and the paramedic saying, "Stay with us and breathe. Come on, you want this." But it was warm. This must have been what my grandpa felt of suffocating on dry land. It hurt for a second, but the warmth flooded my hands, my chest, my face. It would be so easy to just stop. But the warmth led me on the journey of all the what ifs and the "but you didn't say goodbye." It led me back home.
See, this is the problem with typing because then I'm still typing. Oh my gosh, there's so much that's happening there. And I love that there's that brief moment of humor in the beginning. You know, the cat card, we call it kitty paralysis in our house. I can't go pop the popcorn. You must pop it for me because I'm paralyzed. And that was really fun. But then you just like gently ushered us into how serious this moment was. And it was really serious. We don't know what's happened to her. We just know that she's not staying with us until she is. It's interesting because in so many of these types of stories, there's these visual things, and instead this is very auditory. You know, it was about what she was hearing, not what she was seeing. It's not fair to ask if it's autobiographical, but is it autobiographical? Wow. And you really weren't seeing anything then?
It was horrible. Like, I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't move, but I could hear everything. I was in the hospital for a little bit this year, but doing better now.
Yeah, thank goodness. You people in your hospitals, you're terrifying.
It's easy to get meet the out-of-pocket max at the hospital visit if anyone is curious.
Oh,
What'd you say?
Oh, it's easy to meet your out-of-pocket max in a hospital.
Oh, yeah, probably in a day. Like I can speak knowledgeably. I have VA healthcare. So, what are thoughts from people before I take over the conversation?
I love the cat trapping, and the popcorn, and I felt, and I love the way you sort of described, like I felt like you were gonna say it was like the cat was trapped in the cat carrier, and I thought you were gonna go one way, but I felt I liked the noises. So like I heard the meow of the cat and the pop of the popcorn, and then you're stuck and you can't hear. And I felt like really, I liked it. There's a lot of going on there.
Thank
I
you.
like this idea of warmth that you carried throughout the story, because even though you really touch on it towards, I guess, the middle end of it, really you hit it in the beginning when you're talking about this pile of blankets and how that's such a comfortable and really a warm way of being trapped, your little blanket burrito, you know? And then just like that burrito, you rolled it back, you know what I mean? I'm talking about how it comes back to home. It just felt very full circle, and it really, I think, affirmed the fact that it didn't end. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, warmth is a word that's often paired with light, right?
Mhm.
So we could see that. Randall, do you have something to add?
I just think you did a really good job of denying yourself. You know, we normally describe everything by sight pretty much, and we have to force ourselves in our writing to start exploring the other senses. And I think it gave you a good opportunity to show how much you can experience, how much you do experience from the senses that we rely on less, you know, up until we don't have the senses we do need. So
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that Sarah wrote the words blind in the hospital, and that was an experience that you were having and what you wrote as well. And maybe it's the nature of what I asked for the prompt, but it's so interesting that your two pieces are so tightly connected. And the grandpa suffocating on dry land. Wow. I mean, that indicated that there's some kind of, I mean, maybe he had like COPD or, you know, yeah. And so, which is just terrifying. So yeah, I mean, so much happened there. And we know that my vision of this because of the cat was that she was being rushed somewhere, that she wasn't in the hospital yet. And that's fine if you want it to be that, or if you want it to be the hospital. If you want people to picture the settings more strongly, you would play with it just a little bit. But these foreign moments that I asked you to write about, they're the ones that end up creating, I mean, really meaningful writing, because there's a schism happening, right? You're shifting from one thing to another. And that's always, as I've said a million times to all of you, when we write, the main character has to change across the course of what you've written. And in the case of Sarah and Suzanne, anyway, this main character chooses to live. And that's huge, right? When there's a choice and it can go either way, the choice, I mean, in order to write it, you had to live. But you know, the choice is a big deal, because the other option one would never be able to read about is not choosing to give into the warmth or to take that next breath. Yeah. Wow, really powerful. Thank you. So are we down to Elisa now, right?
Okay, so I just carried on with Cleo because that's what I did.
Okay.
Cleo sat at the corner of the street, half huddled behind an olive tree, looking back towards the yellow stucco house. She wiped the lone tear off her cheek, struggled to stand, and then slowly plodded off around the corner. She was done with them, closed the door to the last 21 years and opening a new door to the future. It was over, the hate, the misery, the sorrow, no more slashed wrists, no more pills, no more tears. Brightness beckoned. Moments later, her dad reached the same corner and the same conclusion. Cleo, he called at the retreating back, 2 blocks ahead. She didn't stop. Cleo, he shouted again, dropping his suitcase and running towards her back. She stopped, turned, and ran towards him. His arm opened, and she felt the love pour out. As one, they turned back, their minds turning the corner, turning back into the house, and to the woman left alone in the center of the living room.
So kind of a happy ending.
For half of them, or for 2/3 of them.
Because they come back to the woman, it's not happy.
Well, I think their minds went back to her, but they didn't actually
Oh.
go back to her.
Oh.
They're like thinking about her and screw her and carried on with it. The 2 of them leaving her behind.
Interesting. So do I understand correctly that the father is the husband?
Yes.
Okay, then the first piece, I thought he was a grandfather.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know why I thought that. So in your piece, a daughter and husband leave a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's just heartbreaking. I mean, thank God you keep talking about your husband coming back from trips, or this would be like literal. Yeah. So interesting. Because you said in the first one, and you said this is an continuation of the first one,
Yeah.
that the woman at home is wondering how much of a role she played in their departure. And I think that's a really interesting space when we witness the two other people with the love, and there's been like another, I mean, all this reference to suicide is so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it's been too hard for the daughter anyway to live in the house. You know, this, what you're working on, it bears the question to ask, what are you skirting around if you write this piece? Is it because it would be so hard to continue the questioning that's happening with the woman who stayed at home?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm world famous for writing around what I should be writing about, because did I tell you all? I don't have a lot of emotion in my writing. And somebody said, you know, I said, well, I was taught not to feel anything. And they're like, oh, you should write that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write that. And I had to Google what emotions were.
No.
I was like, I can't really, I think I could name angry. Oh, and happy. And it was hilarious. So I had to Google emotions. All to say, Elisa, that if perhaps you're sidestepping important emotions, you are in great company. I'm not the only person who sidesteps them too, but
Yep.
it's worth asking yourself, am I?
Right.
'Cause it's
No, I
not.
normally write happy, and I write about Russell and
Yeah.
everything's happy, and I'm like in a dark space this week, and
Yeah.
shit's going on, and I feel, I don't know.
And
I felt kind of like she was left, the wife's left behind, but or the mother or whatever, but is it all circumstance? Is it like all,
right.
no one's knowing exactly who's to blame, why to blame? I got to think about it.
Yeah.
But I felt like
the
there was a
story you
nugget there.
wrote- The story you wrote for my class was not happy. It's
True.
truthful, but it was not happy. So it's worth also thinking about, you know, because I am, this is why the subtitle of my memoir has to do with imposter syndrome. You know, I'm very happy to put on a face for people and ignore what's happening inside myself. And maybe, because I'll tell people, I'm the first person to tell people I'm one of the happiest people you'll know. And I believe that. And I think you believe that too. And I think it's probably true. But then what are the two of us not writing about is all I'm saying. You know, because surely
Yeah.
my life isn't as sunshiny as I think it is, right?
Yep.
I don't know. Wow, hijacked it again. Y'all have anything else to say?
There was a bit of, I guess, not quite parallel writing that I really liked. You were talking about there's no more slash-stress, and then very soon after that, you talk about how love poured out of his arms, and I really liked how that kind of played with itself, right? Because you know, you're looking at yourself, cutting yourself versus receiving love out of someone else like that. I liked how that kind of clashed against each other.
Yep.
With a hint at the Venus flytrap that Randall had.
We'll take everybody's stories and make one of them.
There you go.
We need to do our writing thing again that we did last semester with the everyone doing a sentence and adding it on.
They did that in Slack. It was pretty cool.
Yes.
Anything to add, Suzanne?
It was really good. I was like, oh, Elisa's gonna write something happy. And then when you didn't, I was like, oh, I thought we were gonna end on a happy note. So like my soul was crushed, but in a really good way, because you did such a good way of like the different emotions, like even when like hunched near the olive tree with the yellow stucco. And so I was like, there it is. There's gonna be that silver lining, that good thing. And then and it didn't happen right away, but like especially with like the love poured out, like I love that. And especially like exactly what Jesse was saying with like the imagery of like the cutting the wrist and then the love pouring out. I was like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and yellow is usually a symbol of happiness, so that you kind of tricked us. Which is nice.
And my house is all yellow. My
Nice.
first house, we painted it yellow. This one's got yellow. It's, my houses have to be yellow.
Yeah, my mom's too.
but-
Randall, anything to add?
I got another feeling of the dream state, like I mentioned in the first one, that, you know, still trying to decide if I truly thought the people were alive or if they were memories. I guess
Yeah.
to me, it was kind of existing in the alone woman's head, even at this point.
Yeah. That gives me something to work on. That's what I feel like the best part of these groups is it gives me something to try and step out of my comfort zone and think differently. So,
Which is what I was about to say, is that's the best part of these groups. So
Yeah.
thank you for saying it for me. I'm gonna end the recording now. We will try to meet again in 2 weeks if that works for you, though. I'm trying to find stuff.
yeah,